And if you thought fungi and fashion don't really mix, think again. We sit down with Shane. He has teamed up with design students, utilizing old jeans, other textiles, and using that to create mycelium. Mycelium to turn into planter pots. So let's dive into this week's episode. Who is Shane? How is he changing the world using fashion? From code to compost, this week, Flora Funga Podcast introduces Shane from Heartwood Mushrooms. We are diving into the fascinating world of how he swapped software development for shiitakes and turned debugging into mushroom plugging. He actually still works as a software developer and engineer, turning mycologist, education, and founder of Heartwood Mushrooms. He lives for feeding people, experimenting, upcycling waste, cultivating mycelium to create sustainable materials. So we'll kind of dig into what those materials are and how they're beneficial and why it's important and why do we fucking care. He has his own eco-friendly solutions in Ontario, Canada. So yeah, we interview a Canadian today. Very excited to have Shane on. And his journey's all about embracing failure as learning, sharing enthusiast, and inviting the curious to explore more into his mycology potential. So yeah, let's cover, what Heartwood Mushrooms is, how he even got into using textiles and waste to turning them into mycelium. And so I think this will be a very interesting aspect to the episode because we don't really cover fashion and you don't really maybe think of mushrooms with the fashion industry besides like mushroom apparel, t-shirts, backpacks, little sprouts. Since he's paired with technology, let's dig into some of the tech that he uses, open source humidity sensors, wet bulb. We even cover what wet bulb means and fine-tuning your fungi farms. So yeah, apparently mushrooms are really picky. If you don't know, mushrooms do not have to be grown in the dark, but they do need a specific climate. So if you want to grow them outside, it has to be a specific climate. It's really important to keep your mushrooms around, 65 degrees depending on the species and 90-something% humidity. So those are the two factors if you are trying to grow mushrooms. You want something cold and you want something wet. Two things that I hate, cold and wet. That's one of my isms. And so let's kind of understand how you can use this sort of technology paired with fashion, paired with mushrooms. I like this episode because we're kind of blending biology, design, sustainability. All right, let's dive into this week's episode on Flora Funga Podcast. Hello, Shane. Welcome to Flora Funga Podcast today. I'm here to talk about some mushrooms, but maybe some other unique topics. Some of the things that you kind of sent in was like textiles and other myco tools. So give the listeners maybe a little information on who you are. How'd you go from being, a software developer and now kind of getting into fungi?
Yeah, thanks for having me, KK. So I started actually out as an engineer, or I went to school for engineering, and I really enjoyed that. It was very hard for me, but I very much enjoyed it, and I learned some software chops there and became a software developer afterwards. But throughout my formal education, I was always taking biology as electives because I just found them so fun, and they boosted my grade. And it wasn't until after university, I'm like, wait, why didn't I just do biology? Like if that was the fun thing, that was easier for me. So I found through that process that the kind of the technical side of designing things and building things and programming things could then be applied to growing mushrooms and controlling the environment and humidity and all of that, building the sterilizer, building the labs and everything. And so I found in mycology was this beautiful blend of the technical and the kind of the machine and also the living.
Yes.
And so I'm still in the software world. That's kind of how I'm paying my bills right now. And I'm running Heartwood Mushrooms, where I'm able to grow food for people and do cool, wacky science experiments on the side.
Cool. Yeah, no. Sometimes you kind of need both to do that. And I think technology right now and AI is just really pairing well with even the mushroom space because now you can kind of program certain things, control the environment, growing mushrooms indoors. I'm not sure how you do your mushrooms, but a lot of the times it's grown inside year round and so climate controlled. And then now you can kind of watch and monitor some of those features. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. What are some of the favorite features that you kind of like to use within growing your mushrooms with heartwood mushrooms?
So I built my control and monitoring system on some open source software called Home Assistant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's pretty easy to plug in your temperature sensors and controlling your light switches and humidity and all of that stuff. And so yeah, you're talking about AI, and it makes some of the configuration a lot easier because there's not a lot of code that goes into it. It's mostly just configuration, but still, it's like, okay, I have a new air quality sensor. I want to try out this new whatever. It's like, okay, just give me a script to or some configuration, plop it in. And for the most part, it's pretty good and pretty easy. But generally, the backbone of my whole system is Home Assistant.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's interesting. Is there any things that you want to try or, research or kind of um plug and chug some of new things that you haven't tried before?
Yeah, so I'm sure most mushroom cultivators will commiserate with me on this, but humidity sensors do not last long
Yeah, that
in the
makes
grow
sense.
room. The just high humidity and they fry. For me at least, I can get maybe 6 months on kind of the cheap off
Mm-hmm.
the shelf humidity sensor. And I was talking to these guys out of Montreal. I forget what their names were, but they do greenhouse automation stuff. And they built their own humidity sensor, which is it's a wet bulb humidity sensor.
Okay.
And so rather than electronics kind of sensing the moisture in the air, it compares two thermometers, one that's wrapped in a wet cloth and one that's a dry cloth. And that difference in temperature, it's able to calculate how much humidity is actually in the air. So there's no exposed electronics that corrode, which is ultimately what makes these fail. So to
Okay.
answer your question is I would love to try to plug in some kind of wet bulb humidity sensor, but I just have not done that yet.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like a lot of people talk about like temperature with like the wet bulb temperature. Can you explain what that really even means if people don't know?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Cool.
So when we're measuring humidity inside a grow tent or a grow room or something, we're measuring the relative humidity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Two kinds of humidity. There's absolute humidity of just how much water is in the air, and relative is how much water is in the air compared to how much it can hold, right? Because
Mm.
warm air can hold more, cold air can hold less. And so typically relative humidity is in a percentile, right? So or percentage, right? We grow mushrooms somewhere between 75, 85% humidity. The actual amount of water in the air will change if it's colder or warmer, right?
Mm.
So if you're at 85% and you get a sudden temperature drop, that can spike up to 95 plus,
Ooh,
right?
yeah.
Or if it gets really, really hot, then the relative humidity actually ends up dropping and dries out your mushrooms. So
Mm.
that's kind of a bit on relative humidity.
Yeah.
The two thermometers in a wet bulb, dry bulb sensor, you have two thermometers and one is wrapped in a cloth that's constantly kept wet, right? And air is passed over it, the air that you're trying to measure the humidity of. And just like when we sweat, when the water evaporates, it takes the heat away, right? And that's what
Mm-hmm.
cools us down. The same thing happens to the wick around the wet bulb, right? So if the air is totally saturated with water, it can't actually pull any of the water off the wick. So that means that the two temperatures will be the same. But the drier the air is, the more water gets pulled off, and then the more heat gets pulled off the thermometer, and it actually gets a little bit colder. So you're
Mm.
able to actually measure the difference in temperature to give you the relative humidity of the air.
Got you. Yeah, because with the rise in temperature within Earth or, on the surface right now, a lot of people are stressed out about too hot it is because when it gets too humid or the wet bulb effect happens and now people can't sweat off. So that's kind of I just wanted to tie that into humans maybe if people were interested in that too, is that's why it's kind of scary because now we can't really even sweat off to cool ourselves. And so that's kind of what the risk is in the future of growing in temperatures or, yeah, having high temperatures on Earth. Hmm.
Hmm.
And what is like your mission with heartwood mushrooms?
Hmm. I ask myself that frequently, partially to remind myself to give me the grit to keep going, and also to make sure that I do any course correcting.
Mm-hmm.
It started out with I wanted to feed people,
Mm-hmm.
right? I feel like it's inherently a good thing
Yeah.
to do. And I wanted to make soil. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to increase the carrying capacity of the earth around me, or of the soil around me. And it kind of started when I realized how much honey a bee makes in her entire life. It's something like an eighth of a teaspoon,
Oh,
right? It's very, very small, 21 days, and it's so small, and yet it adds up to a lot.
right.
And I guess I was trying to check my ego and be like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to accomplish these massive, grandiose goals, but like, what's my eighth of a teaspoon of honey going to be?
Oh,
And so I was thinking about, okay, how do I make more soil around me? How do I feed my community around me? So that's like the food and soil piece is kind of the fertile layer of this for things to grow out of, so to speak. And the stuff that grows out of that is this mad scientist curiosity, Bill Nye kind of thing, where I just want to learn how things work. And I want to try cool stuff out. I want to tinker with things. I want to build new things. And this is where my fascination with circular economies and closing the loops around waste streams come in, because I know that fungi and mycelium can have this incredible ability to work with these waste streams and realize a lot of value that's inherent in them that
mm-hmm.
most people unfortunately don't end up seeing. So, Heartwood, two layers. It's the food, it's the soil, and caring for self and the people and the earth around me. And the other one is to satisfy the my own curiosity and figure out better ways to do things.
Mm-hmm. What would you say? People say that we don't have enough food to feed the world. And I kind of think it's just like the lack of accessibility to these certain people. So, what is your kind of ideology on feeding the world?
Have you heard of a YouTube channel called Climate Town?
No.
Fascinating stuff. Anyways,
Okay.
he did a video on food waste a little while ago, and specifically around best before dates, right? Best before,
Uh,
not
don't get me
after.
started on it.
Right. And apparently, and this I may be misquoting, but I think I'm in the ballpark. The amount of food that gets wasted as a result of these just best before dates in the US alone is equal to three Hungaries, which
Three
is
Hungries.
three Hungaries, three times the country of Hungary. That's
Oh,
like
okay.
that's how much food that they produce, right? So there's a lot of non-food things that's kind of contributing to this mindset of scarcity.
Mm.
We're making so much food.
Yes.
We're making so much goddamn food. Right. And it's disheartening. It's shocking to see how much of that just ends up uh, not being used.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are some companies that are doing like, the imperfect fruits or things like that, and I think that's a really cool movement. And I don't know why. I mean, I guess I know why they do the best by dates, but like why do people follow those so strictly? And I don't know. I feel like that's really annoying to deal with because there is so much food that goes to waste just because they want to, make more money or like overturn things. So, do you have like an idea of how we could be a better society with that? Or have you ever kind of thought, if you had, if you could do something, what would you do or how would you contribute?
Hmm. That's a fantastic question. At this point, I'd just be pulling something out of my ass because
Okay.
I don't have the experience to actually try working with
Mm-hmm.
reclaiming food
Yeah.
uh, in that industrial kind of scale, or even at municipal scale. Like I've never tried doing that because I think ultimately it's a logistics challenge, right? It's
Mm,
get the thing to where it wants to be or where it needs to be.
right.
And I just don't have a lot of experience with
Mm-hmm.
logistics like
Yeah.
that.
No, that's a very valid point. If anybody watching or listening, comment down below or DM me if you guys have any ideas of how we could help accessibility of food waste. So I think in our discovery call, we were talking about like textiles and like using mycelium for things. Do you kind of want
Mm,
to explain, your ideas or experiments that you are interested in?
yeah, love to.
Cool.
So I was at my friend's place in Toronto, maybe 6 months ago. Just stopped in to say hi, and I met another guy, another friend of his by the name of Narish, and he was studying fashion sustainability at the Toronto Metropolitan University. And we just got talking. He's like, I've been diverting all this textile waste, and it's good because people are actually like separating it, the synthetics from the natural fibers, but it's just kind of piling up.
Mm.
And I just finished doing some experimentation with hemp fibers and making objects out of shredded hemp. And I'm like, might be able to do something with the shredded cotton or with the cotton. I learned, turns out it's called muslin. It's used for making templates for clothes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I was like, can I get a bag of the stuff? He's like, absolutely. So I got a bag of the stuff. It came in large sheets, and I'm like, okay, let's soak it, let's sterilize it, let's give it some oyster mushroom mycelium. Took to it totally fine. And then I'm like, okay, let's see if I can compress it and layer it and all that stuff. And it's like, lo and behold, the mycelium was binding the sheets together. So it's like, okay,
Oh,
cool. Like, still not super useful because I find large sheets don't stick together well. Mycelium's
mm.
not good at that, or at least oyster mycelium isn't. But when I was just kind of balling up the stuff, it was like,
Right.
okay, this is pretty solid. I could drop it, I could throw it against a wall, and that's fine. So I'm like, okay, I need to get it into smaller pieces. It's just too big. So I sat down with a pair of scissors. First, I tried a blender and I just mucked up my blender real quick. So then I sat down with a pair of scissors and just started cutting it into like half-inch, quarter-inch squares. And that
Mm-hmm.
took so many hours. But I got enough to do a small little test thing and went through the motions. And I'm like, okay, this is actually feasible. This is turning into something that's potentially usable as like a plant pot or lampshade or something.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so now what we're working on is actually have has nothing to do with mycelium. It's actually finding local capability to shred waste textiles.
Mm-hmm.
So no one, not many people have textile shredders hanging around. Lots of people have
Yeah.
blenders and lawnmowers and wood chippers and stuff, but this is such a unique piece of equipment.
Okay.
And there's a Goodwill Industries a couple hours away from Toronto that said they will shred the stuff for us, right? It's a matter of us getting it there and shredding it and bringing it
Right.
back. We're like, okay, cool. This will be a good start. Like it gets us kind of off the ground, and we're trying to reclaim waste. We don't typically want to add in, 5 hours of highway driving worth of gasoline into the
Right.
embodied cost of this product. That being said, Goodwill Industries just shreds wrap tons of cotton and other synthetics
Hmm.
already. And so we're like, okay, for the meantime, we're just getting garbage bags worth of their shredded stuff, and we're able to experiment and play with that right there. But ultimately, we're trying to work with, at this point, fashion industries and designers and clothing producers in Toronto to just take that one stream, that one Muslim stream? Can we absorb all of the waste of this one stream from this one organization and make something useful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the process that we're going in right now. It's piecing together these elements that we need to bring it from start to finish, or from finish to start, I guess.
Yeah. So what does the machine look like that shreds up this material? Is it just kind of like a paper shredder? Like I'm trying to visualize how.
Yeah, it's a really good question. The nature of textiles is lots of threads and lots of fibers. And that does not do well with high speed rotating blender things because then
Right.
it just get wrapped
Yeah.
around. Have you ever tried vacuuming with long hair? Your vacuum gets
Yes, true.
same kind
I
of thing there. So
yes.
essentially, textile, yeah, I hear you. Textile shredding is typically done with these long drums with either serrated blades or these like hooked blades that slowly turn and kind of like cut and shred and pull them apart. So imagine
Ah.
these long drums with dozens or hundreds of half pairs of serrated scissors, and they're kind of rotating and slicing into each other.
Hmm.
So it's a pretty bespoke piece of equipment, but you can get them from the size of a large kind of home generator to massive industrial quantities. So
Hmm.
we're trying to find a way to get our own small one, and we're hoping that we can just work with Goodwill or get someone to shred it for now and make enough of something. We don't know what that thing's going to be yet. It will likely be a plant pot. But then can we bootstrap this and get the piece of equipment that we need? Because then we bring it in-house and we can start doing stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, and is this with like fast fashion or is this like specific? I guess I didn't really pick up if you had like specific companies that you're taking these textiles from and just kind of collecting all in Toronto, or is there some specific place you're taking these from?
Well, right now, we're only collecting from the Toronto Metropolitan University Fashion Department
Oh,
or
okay.
the fashion school. So it's the students that are going through
Oh,
their
cool.
their degree there, and they're producing. Um, I think they're producing somewhere around like 40, call it like 40 pounds a month of this stuff.
Okay.
So it's enough to really start playing with.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool that all universities and like colleges are really kind of up to date on trying to heal, or they have ideas in mind, and then now you can get like credits by just working with these things. So I feel like a lot of people that I talk to, it all starts within, the education system, and that's the people interested in trying to make these movements.
Yeah, definitely. And to speak to that as well is we're also taking the textiles, myceliating it, and we're trying to actually give it back to these fashion students or industrial design or interior design students, right? Because I'm on the manufacturing and the biology side of things, and I've found with working with mycelium composites is get them into the hands of people who are um, kind of creative in that sense on the regular, and they
Mm-hmm.
think of things that I couldn't possibly do. So at this point, I'm like, cool, get this thing and just give it to super creative people and see what happens, and
Yeah.
that'll help inform how we think about things and move forward.
Yeah, so what do you think the goal would be with this myceliated like textiles? Like are people trying to, I don't know, just grow more mushrooms, or you're just trying to kind of turn the scraps into compost, or yeah, what's kind of the idea with that?
For me, it's find utility on the way to it becoming soil.
Okay.
So can we take these shredded cotton scraps, make a plant pot, like for example,
Yes, visuals.
this is the hemp one that I made a little while ago, right?
Oh,
So can we do something like this out of cotton? And I think we can. It may be
okay.
pure cotton, or maybe it'll be some percentage hemp or another kind of more stiffer plant fiber. But can we do that and get people to actually use it? And will they want to plant in that rather than a plastic pot? Are they cool with it in 2 years going into their compost bin or turning into soil? So
Mm-hmm.
kind of the short to medium term is that find utility on the way to it becoming soil. Like we're designing that into the end of life of that product.
Oh, cool.
The other piece is what do we do with all the synthetic fibers, right? Because there's way more synthetic fibers of the polyesters and the nylons and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a company out of Europe called Mogu. I think it's pronounced like that. And they do a lot of gorgeous, freaking gorgeous acoustic paneling. It's like almost like art on the wall, but
Oh.
it helps dampen sound. And there's it's yeah. Anyways, they have different properties, different acoustic properties with different blends and whatever. And so it's like, are you filtering out the low end or the high end and that kind of stuff? So I'm wondering what percentage of synthetic fibers can we mix in to these
Mm.
kinds of things to create products, to create objects that have much longer lifespans, but that are kind of embedding this into it and finding more utility. That still begs
Mm.
the question of what do you do at the end of the life? Does this just go into a landfill? Is extending the life cycle of it by that much more good enough? That's kind of like an ethical question I don't have an answer to yet. But I'm hoping is as we work towards that, more people come on board and try to spend more time thinking about it, then we can come to more satisfying answers.
Yeah, and I like that you use the plant pot kind of as your first, prototype in a way, just because a lot of people, love gardening, but there is so much plastic waste within the gardening space. And even like Proven Winners is trying to do that compostable thing where I guess, plant it within the plant, and then, it's supposedly composts after a few years. So yeah, this is a really cool product that hopefully people will, latch onto, and it seems pretty cool, especially including like hemp and things like that. We gotta bring hemp back as one of the main materials for things.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we're ideating about, and there's a lot of ideas, and ideas are pretty cheap until you can actually put it into practice. But another thing is, especially in dense urban areas, a lot of people don't have a lot of backyard. They don't have a lot of growing space, and if they do, the soil's not that great.
Mm-hmm.
What's the option? You build a raised bed, you import soil and all that. Um, you think about like a mix between those styrofoam fish cooler boxes and Lego and raised beds. It's like, okay, could we do that kind of thing where you just plunk it down, you fill it with soil, you're planting in it, and it's proper drainage and everything. And then the intention is over the years that just compost, and you're actually making a garden, like slow soil factory while you're growing today, kind of thing. So that's another thing that we think
Yes.
that might work.
Yeah, and so since you said like not a lot of backyard space, like I technically could kind of plant around here, but if you have like a space only inside or in like a balcony, could you do some sort of like living wall where you can kind of like have, I don't know how this would even work, but something where if you don't have any land to do your ground raised beds, like what would you kind of uh recommend for that?
What would I recommend, or what do I dream about? Because those are two
Both.
two different answers. Yeah. What would I recommend is well, like I have a friend of mine in Toronto who I gave her a few blocks of mycelium, and she just has milk crates, and she bought a bunch of straw, and she just has stacked milk crates and mushrooms popping out of these milk crates like all the time. And then she takes that and then puts it through a bokashi composter, and now has soil, and then starts her seedlings. And she has
Oh.
her balcony backyard is pretty incredible.
Oh.
Um,
Balcony
and
backyard. I like that.
or sorry, balcony garden. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
balcony garden. And for what I'm dreaming about is kind of what I was talking about before, but the Lego-ness of it is they can stack on top of each other. So
Mm-hmm.
it's structural enough that they can stack, but it's also open enough to be able to plant into. Like, have you seen these kind of vertical farms with lettuce and strawberries? Looks like a large plastic column with a bunch of holes in it.
Hmm.
In my mind, it's like that, but a squatter version made out of some mycelium
Oh,
or
right.
composite that you can kind of plant into. You just plunk it down, you have your vertical space, you can have your squash cascading down it, you can have your beans growing up it, like
Mm-hmm.
get started and start growing and make soil.
Yeah, yeah, like now I'm thinking about all the things I could replace, from plastic into this type of mycelium, contraption. I feel like you could replace a lot of things. Another industry that has so much plastic is the healthcare system. And I'm like, I wonder how, because everything has to be, sterile and sanitary. And so I'm like, how could we use mycelium somehow to like kind of be all the packaging for all these things? And yeah, I wonder how that could play out, or if people would, be all about it. Will
Yeah,
take time.
it will. I'd love to eventually get connected with people or just be around people that are working on the kind of the more pure mycelium biofilm
Yep. Yep.
solutions.
Biofilm. Yep.
Yeah, right now I'm just doing composites where it's like you're myceliating a thing. And
Hmm.
I find it endlessly fascinating. Anyone who's working with the pure mycelium kind of stuff, that's just way too
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, who would be your like ideal partnership if you could try to collab with this? I don't know.
For biofilm stuff?
Or like how you're kind of set up with the university for these textiles, like who else do you think you'd like to tackle with?
kind of like a small, medium scale local recycler. So someone that
Mm,
has warehouse space or like facility space that just has these cool industrial or light industrial processing pieces. And
mm,
so, because right now that's the bottleneck um, to this experimentation and the progress right now. So I I can think of like pie in the sky kind of things, and also right now is like what's the bottleneck? What's the one thing that if it was solved would move this forward? And it's actually local recyclers.
mm-hmm. Mm.
So someone with industrial processing capability that I don't have, that the universities don't have.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question too. Like what's kind of that like main obstacle that you would face to grow, hardwood mushrooms or anything like that? Hmm. Okay.
Mhm.
And I guess let's talk about failure. If
Right.
how I feel like you're really good at maybe embracing failure as like everything maybe happens for a reason, and how can you kind of give advice on pushing forward even though you're running into a lot of obstacles?
Hmm. You say pushing forward, and in some sense, I think it's the opposite of that.
Okay.
The reason I say that is because pretty much every one of my failures is because I wasn't sensitive enough
Mm.
to the
Okay.
mycelium. It's a very sensitive organism.
Yeah.
Was the moisture right? Was the humidity right? The temperature, did it have enough oxygen? Was I sterile enough? Like all these little things that I don't typically pay attention to because I don't
Mm.
need to, right? I don't care
Yeah.
what it is. I can just keep breathing and I'm fine. I can survive a pretty wide range of temperatures, but the mycelium is a lot more sensitive. And so it's because a lot of the failures is because I wasn't sensitive enough, and or
Mm.
I made assumptions. I'm like, oh, this will work. Let me just throw that into production. Oh my gosh, I have 600 pounds of compost now. Damn. And I've done that more times than anyone should have to do. Yeah, so it's for me, it's actually about sensitivity. It's like
Oh.
how can I become more sensitive? What am I not attuning to that the
Mm-hmm.
that the mycelium is and needs to in order to thrive?
Yeah. So what are some of those factors that you're now kind of playing with? Because you were saying maybe like humidity. Is there a different strains that, you could work with that would be easier or better? Maybe you're more attuned to.
Right. Well, oyster mushrooms, I'm by far the most attuned to. I've grown the most of that by far. I'm playing with a turkey tail, and I got the turkey tail to grow on the textile, and it grew super well. Like it was so tough and so leathery. And I'm like, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be even better. Put it into the molds, ran a workshop, and they all got covered in trichoderma. And
Oh,
I'm like, damn, that's not what I thought would happen. It was going so strong.
yeah.
So I guess I took some liberties with um, how DIY, how sterile the environment could be. And I opted for like a backyard workshop. And
Oh.
that was, so it's like, okay, oyster, totally fine. Turkey tail, not so much. So
Uh,
I'm becoming most sensitive to bioloads. What's the quality of the air? What's the sterility of the tools, my hands, um, my breath when I'm talking, like what's going on there?
right. Right, right. So what does the setup kind of look like then to kind of take all of that into account? Like, you wipe down things, you have PPE, or yeah, what does the space kind of look like?
Yeah, pretty standard mycology setup. So I have a 1,200 square foot facility that we built in 2018, and so we do everything in it. So we do mixing, sterilizing, inoculating. We got a lab, incubating, fruiting, small commercial kitchen, cooler, and stuff like that. So we just use that stuff right there, or I'm going to be
Mhm.
doing a lot more of that. I thought I could get away with, or a part of me wanted to see how dirty could we do this experimentation in, because the less sterile it is, inherently, the more accessible it is. If
Mhm.
anyone can do it in their backyard, great. So let's test that out, see how accessible that is, and then kind of get more involved until the point where it's like, okay, this works now. So moving forward, I'm definitely going to be doing turkey tail in my shop. I'm definitely
Mm-hmm.
going to be inoculating it in my lab. I'm going to be using plenty of isopropyl. I'll be wearing gloves. I'll be wearing a mask and just really taking care to keep the space clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even growing turkey tail for like, um, I guess, making teas and stuff, it is pretty difficult. I feel like they're picky and they like to not share spores with other mushrooms. So, yeah, I guess that does kind of make sense. Like being outside, now you're also introducing all these other components as well, but I feel like they're just picky where they need specific temperature to grow and they're slow growing. So, yeah, taking all that into account would be a
Yeah.
lot. Hmm.
Yeah. It's a lot about realizing and trying to control as many variables as possible. And
Right.
doing a backyard inoculation is just like, yeah, it's like what did I expect would happen?
Yeah, I feel like that would work with like logs and things like that, where you already kind of have the plugs, and then, it's just like big wood outside where it's gonna be
Totally.
anyway. Huh. Well, now that's
Now I
the
know.
myco mishaps that you kind of came in contact with, and you just switch it up, and now you've learned something.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do more with reishi. I tried with reishi. I have a
Okay.
locally cloned strain of Ganoderma tsuga, and that just did not grow at all on the cotton. Like the mycelium just did not take
Mm.
whatsoever. So I'm like, okay, curious. Maybe I might try supplementing it with a little bit. Maybe a different species of Ganoderma will work a little bit better. But
Right.
I'd love to get the really, really tough reishi mycelium into practice.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe the local one works better. Yeah, that's really interesting thinking of like different species that could grow easier, better on specific things. Yeah. Hmm. That's fun. What other future things do you want to kind of work with besides kind of trying Rishi again or
Hmm. I feel like I have my work cut out for me with just getting those three species, and
hmm.
a lot going to be on the design and manufacturing side of things. Like, okay, we'll have to 3D model the molds. Like, actually making the molds is by far the hardest part of this whole thing because they're
Oh,
typically custom, bespoke objects. And I've used wood, I've used a 3D printer. There's only a certain scale you can do with 3D printers, and it has to withstand a lot of pressure and force because the strength of the material goes up with how much you can compress it. So 3D printers, uh, unless you unless you make like really, really solid pieces, they'll break and crack when you try to press it together.
right.
Now we're like, okay, let's design something and go to a metal manufacturer, right? Let's and design all of that. And undoubtedly, we're going to run into problems, probably, I'm guessing around oxygen. I think that unless
Mm,
we embed a whole bunch of holes, little tiny holes into the molds, then it's just not going to get enough oxygen. But that's the next layer. It's like we need another industrial process to make the mold for this. So I'm going to have my work cut out for me for for a while and that alone.
yeah. Yeah, that sounds pretty busy. And then, just working with all these different things, working with all these different people. And if people think that certain methods or science that you're using is kind of intimidating, maybe the techniques, how do you kind of demystify that and make it approachable for the common folk or citizen scientist?
Hmm. I think it's important to meet them where they're at
Mm-hmm.
and give enough information, but no more.
Mm-hmm.
And so something like that is if I'm in a grade one classroom,
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to be talking about mycelial structures and spits and corpors and everything. It's just
Yes,
like
the
it's a
spits and
mushroom, it'll
corpors.
grow. Like let's get our hands into the bag and start playing with it.
Yeah.
However, working with people who are really interested in the material science side of things, then okay, let's actually talk about the microscopic structure that
Mm-hmm.
lends itself to these properties. If I'm doing workshops or working with artists, then it's just show them enough. Typically, at that point, I try to drop a few mushroom or fungi facts to blow their
Yeah.
mind. And then it's just let's just get into it, right? And give them enough so that they have the information that they need to let their creativity just go off,
Mm.
right? It's
Mhm.
so it's like I'm constantly trying to attune to the people that I'm working with, that I'm playing with, that I'm educating, just to meet them where they're at, right? And a lot of that is me reining myself in because I can just go off for hours and I see the eyes glaze over. I'm like, okay, let's rein this back a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point because, you kind of have to educate people different depending on, if they're kids, people within the space, like, universities, but then also, partnerships, investors. It all has a different kind of feel to it. So good for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, definitely. And accessibility and also what would be useful to them. Because some of the
Mm,
stuff is a one-time thing. I'm curious, I'll try this thing out and then be like, okay, cool, that's good enough. Whatever.
right,
But then it's like, oh, is this something that I can keep doing again and again?
right.
Right. So making cardboard spawn off of mushrooms from the grocery store and then putting that into a milk crate of straw, for example. It's like you can have unlimited, almost free mushrooms,
Hmm.
right? And so some stuff like that really gets people engaged. I'm like, oh, I could use this. I can add this to my gardening repertoire, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, mushroom gardening is definitely popping off. And, if you're just trying to fill in the spaces there, and then if you already have wood chips, it's a good feeding. It's kind of like, flora and fungi, just so it just molds together, really.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shane, for being on here today. Let people know where they can find you or get a hold of you or plug anything you'd like.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks for having me, KK. So you can find me on most social medias at Heartwood Mushrooms or heartwoodmushrooms.ca. So we do a whole bunch of food, dried mushroom products and spices and stuff. And buying that feeds yourself and your family and also feeds my obsession with doing these nerdy things and help support that. So thank you for having me.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it was lovely having a Canadian on. So that's kind of fun too.
Yeah.
What is the culture like around mushrooms up in Canada?
Well, there's a lot of Canada.
Yeah, I know, right?
And
Maine.
where I live on Manitoulin Island,
Okay.
and I think the average age here is about 50 and above.
Okay.
And so with the older crowd, there's a lot of uncertainty and skepticism around mushrooms. And so
Mm,
and it's probably a lot everywhere, but there's a small gardening community that are like, hell yeah, mushrooms. And then I find the bulk is like, I don't know about that.
yeah. How would this benefit me? And will you do all the work for me?
Hmm.
Uh, cool, cool. I just wanted to ask. I was like, I don't know if there's a difference or if, it's more open-minded or what the age group is, because that's kind of good to know too.
We could
Gotta know
use
who
a
you're
lot
feeding.
more mushroom festivals here. I'll tell you that. I see all them in the States, and there's so many all the time. And I'm like, damn, I wish we had a fraction of them up in Canada.
So is there any that you've participated in or have heard of?
Just in the States, like the Radical Mycology Convergence was the big
Yeah.
one that did, and there's a new one out in Quebec, I believe. Last year was its first year, and
Okay.
this October is its second one.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know of any in Ontario where,
Okay.
yeah,
We'll have to work on that and kind of connect some people.
would love that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Shane, again for being on here today. Have
Thanks.
a lovely rest. Well, thank you for shrooming in and enjoying this week's episode. Please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Please leave a little review if you enjoyed the episode. If you want to learn more about the fashion industry, if you want to learn more about Shane's Heartwood Mushrooms, please follow him. Go check out some of his stuff that he does. And if you would like to sponsor next week's episode, please give me a shout out. Please DM me. I would love to kind of plug any of your services, products. Still am doing a review on mushroom coffee coming soon. So I just ordered Four Sigmatic. Not sponsored, by the way. I bought all of this with my own money. So we're going to try out a few more coffees. I've heard about Cuppa, and the Four Sigmatic one is obviously an OG product out there. So I'm going to be doing a little review on that mushroom coffee coming soon. So shroom in for that as well. If you want me to review any of your products, please drop me a DM, send an email. You can venture to florafungapodcast.com, and there's a contact page. You can just click away and find me. You can watch all of these episodes up on YouTube. You can listen anywhere you enjoy listening podcasts. So, please reach out. I post everything in my shorts and little teasers on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You know it, you name it, baby. So thank you again for supporting the podcast. If you want to financially also support, I have a GoFundMe page, so that should be linked down at the bottom as well. Anything really, really helps. I've been starting to travel a lot, and it's a lot of money to keep up with the high quality content, traveling, production. I'm actually filming this on a new device, so thank you, Mr. Trippy, for sponsoring my new phone, and I really appreciate that. So now I can kind of bring around some technology and film all of my in-person stuff using a better full storage. I was having to offload my phone every time I recorded one of these episodes. And that was a lot, and I was losing footage, and so this is just way easier having 1 terabyte of storage on my new phone. So yeah, shout out to that. Shout out to storage. Whew, never can have enough. All right, well, thanks for enjoying me again, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, have a great week, my scientists, and go learn something new today. Peaches.